Hi, I'm Jacqueline O'Neill, and welcome to week 2 of Biblical Hebrew. And this is going to be session A. Today we're going to start with talking about the letter Aleph. So I'm going to begin with a story about how the alphabet came to be, that rabbis often tell. So the story is that when God went to create the world, he was going to do it through speech, through saying things. And so the first thing he had to do was he had to create language. He had to create the alphabet. So he created all 22 letters of the alphabet. And after he did so, each of the letters came forward before him and made an argument on why they should be the first letter of the alphabet. So each one came first in front of him and made their argument, except for one letter. And that one letter was Aleph. And when it was Aleph's turn, Aleph just stayed silent before the Lord. So at the end, God chose Aleph because it was humble and silent. And so Aleph is the first letter of the alphabet. And it is a silent letter. It is a placeholder for vowels. Later on in Hebrew got a bunch of dots and dashes that represent vowels, but in the Hebrew alphabet there are no vowels, and so Aleph is that placeholder. So it can be A, E, I, O, U, and Aleph is a picture of an ox. So this was the Proto-Hebraic word or letter for Aleph. So you can see it's the head of an ox. And as time went on, it changed. And this letter may look a little bit more familiar to you. So this is what it became next. So, and then eventually we came to the letter Aleph as it appears in Hebrew today. So Aleph is, as I said, a silent letter. It's the first letter of the alphabet, and it's also the number 1, which we'll get into later on. So Aleph now is a picture of a man reaching up to God and down to the earth. And this letter represents power, authority, strength, master, leadership, Father, and God. It also has a secondary concept of a school of learning or teacher, and also Aleph. If you take the letters that spell out the word Aleph and put them backwards, it spells the word wonder. So they also say it means wondrous. So, which is going to be of interest to us later on. So, and how did it get all these meanings? Well, when you think about an ox, you think about that the ox is a very powerful animal. It ends up with authority as it pulls the plow because it's going to pull it in the direction that it's going to pull it in. It definitely has strength. Master, as in the fact that a grown ox will be the master over younger oxes, teaching them how to pull. That's also that leadership role. Father, an ox is a provider for their family, just like a father is. And then out of that, we get the concept of God. This is the word Aleph spelled out. In Hebrew, everything is read from right to left, unlike English where we read left to right. So Aleph is spelled Aleph, Lamed, and Pei. So, it is, so let's talk a little bit more about how Aleph is viewed for the Hebrew people. So Torah, which is the first 5 books of the Bible, is considered by the Jewish people to be a yoke. So it's kind of like how Jesus was talking about in the Bible, that he said his yoke is easy and his burden is light. A yoke is something that attaches a an oxen or a mule or something like that to a plow or a carriage or some sort of vehicle. And the Torah is said to be this yoke to attach us to the purposes that God has for humanity. So the Aleph represents that God has given us the strength to walk in that yoke, and that strength is Him. The ox leads by means of the yoke. He does not follow behind the vehicle that he is pulling, but he leads it with an ear to the one who's given him the task. And as I said, the ox provides for his family. He provides for his family through labor, through self-sacrifice. And this is the task of the Father. He is the provider through his effort and his toil. And he is the leader to us through self-sacrifice. An ox, in providing for its family, lays down its life for its family. So to provide sustenance. So God is our Father and our provider and our strength. And there's something to help you understand about a yoke for the Hebrews. So there's a couple different kinds of yokes. One is the yoke that just straight up attaches an ox to a cart. Another one is a double yoke where you can connect 2 together. But there's also a thing called an easy yoke, like what Christ talked about. And that's kind of the yoke that the Torah is, or that God is with us. In the easy yoke, you have the older oxen who has been used to and knows how to work in that yoke. And he goes into that yoke, and the yoke is mainly attached. That part of the yoke is attached to the vehicle, whatever it is that they're pulling. But then it has a secondary yoke attached to it. And in that yoke, you put a young, new ox that has not pulled before, doesn't know anything about what it's doing. And in that yoke, that ox does not pull anything. All the purpose of that yoke is to teach that young ox how to stay in line with the older ox. And so that's part of what God is doing with us when he puts us into this yoke, is the yoke of the Torah is God is doing all the effort. God is doing all the work. And we are being yoked in next to him to learn how to walk beside him and along with him, coming into agreement with him. We don't do any work. The only purpose of us is to bring us alongside him while he does the work. And so this is something that I think needs to be a mindset switch that the Hebrews have that we don't have in America's, because when we think of work, we think of getting sweaty and dirty and putting in a lot of effort. But the work that Christ has called us to do is to simply come alongside of him and be a participant with him as he works in and through us into the world. And he's the one who gets the dirty and the sweaty. And we are just along for the ride, but being kept close and kept in So, as I said earlier, the number of Aleph is 1. Hebrew doesn't have a numbering system, so the letters are the numbers. So, Aleph is the first letter of the alphabet, is the number 1. So, Aleph, as we said earlier, is spelled Aleph Lamed Pei. Sorry, my son drew a picture over top of it. Anyway, so each one of these letters has a numbering system also. So Aleph is also 1, Lamed is 30, and Pei is 80. So when you add that up, the word Aleph equals 111. Christians would say that this equals the Trinity, 1, 1, 1. So showing that God, the Godhead, 3 in 1. The word Aleph also, because remember there's no vowels, so this word right here can also be pronounced in another way. It can be pronounced Aleph. And Aleph is the word for 1,000. So Aleph can be 1, and Aleph can also represent 1,000. So also, there's another way that Jews look at the letter Aleph, and that is they say that each letter is made up of other letters. So in the case of the Aleph, it is made up of a Vav, which is a straight long line, and then 2 Yods, which are the smallest letters of the alphabet, which we'll learn about later on. But the thing to know right now is that a Yod is the number equivalent of 10, and a Vav is a number equivalent of 6. So you have 10, 10, and 6, which equals 26. This number, 26, is also the number that is equal to the name of God, the Yod He Vav He, which is also called the Tetragrammaton. It is sometimes pronounced Yahweh, Jehovah, Yehovah, and so that is the name of God, and 26, and so Aleph is said to represent God because it's also the number 26. So that, let me show you one other quick thing. So this is in Proto-Hebrew. So this is the word El. The word El you might recognize from names of God like El Elyon, El Shaddai, El Roi. There's lots of El names of God. And you recognize it too as talking about God at the end of people's names like Daniel, Samuel, I don't know, whatever other El names you can think of. And it is a name that means Lord. It means not only Lord as in God, but it also means like an earthly lord, like a king or a warlord or whatever else you might think. So it was written as the Aleph, the ox, and then this is the Lamed, which is a shepherd's crook. And it's also considered to be the yoke. It's El, it's the one who leads or has authority, the strength to have authority, is the word El. Here's another fun thing with the letter Aleph. So this is the word Gola. It means exile. So Gimel, Vav, Lamed, He. And so exile. But if you add an Aleph to the same word, it becomes Giola. And Giola means redemption. So you take a person in exile and you bring the Lord into the such situation, and he brings redemption. So some cool little things of the way that Hebrews look at words that we wouldn't necessarily see as we're reading in Scripture. But as you begin to learn Hebrew, you begin to realize that there is these little things that we can learn about from the words themselves if we understand the letters and what they mean. So thank you very much, and we'll see you in part B.